Welcome to Learn English with an Australian Accent. Today we're learning English through story. The story is Animal Farm by George Orwell. It is a classic. It's in simplified English that we're reading today so that it's easier to understand, and I'm speaking at a little slower rate than normal. Put on subtitles in your language underneath the English subtitles that are already there, so that at any point you can pause the video and marry the two words together and learn the vocabulary. If you've missed chapter 1, catch it here, watch that one first, and then come back and watch chapter 2. Chapter 2 of Animal Farm. 3 nights later, Old Major died in his sleep. They buried him at the orchard. This was in early March. In the next 3 months, the animals were very busy. Major's speech made the smarter animals think differently about life. They didn't know when the rebellion would happen. They didn't think it would be in their lifetime, but they felt that they should be ready for it. The pigs, who were the smartest animals, took the job of teaching the others. 2 young pigs, Snowball and Napoleon, were the most important. Mr. Jones was raising them to sell. Napoleon was a big, fierce-looking pig. He didn't talk much, but was known for getting his way. Snowball was more lively and quick to speak, but he wasn't seen as having the same depth of character. The other male pigs were porkers. The best known among them was a small, fat pig named Squealer. He had round cheeks, bright eyes, quick movements, and a loud voice. He was a great talker, and when he argued, he would move around a lot, which made him very convincing. Others said Squealer could change lies into truth. These 3 pigs took Old Major's idea and made them into a system called animalism. Several nights a week, after Mr. Jones went to sleep, they held secret meetings in the barn to explain animalism to the other animals. At first, many animals were confused and didn't care. Some talked about being loyal to Mr. Jones, who they called Master, or said things like, "Mr. Jones feeds us. If he's gone, we will starve." Others asked questions like, "Why should we care what happens after we die?" Or, "If the rebellion is going to happen anyway, why should we work for it?" The pigs had a hard time making them understand that that was not the spirit of animalism. The silliest question came from Molly, the white mare. The first question she asked Snowball was, "Will there be sugar after the rebellion?" "No," Snowball said firmly. "We can't make sugar on this farm. Besides, you don't need sugar. You have all the oats and hay you want." "And can I still wear ribbons in my mane?" Molly asked. Comrade, Snowball said. "These ribbons are a sign of slavery. Don't you see that freedom is worth more than ribbons?" Molly agreed, but she didn't sound very sure. The pigs also had a tough time fighting against the lies spread by Moses, the tame raven. Moses was Mr. Jones' pet and a spy, but he was a very good talker. He said there was a place called Sugar Candy Mountain where all animals went when they died. He said it was in the sky, beyond the clouds. In Sugar Candy Mountain, it was always Sunday. Clover grew all year, and lump sugar and linseed cake grew on the hedges. The animals didn't like Moses because he told stories and didn't work. But some believed in Sugar Candy Mountain, and the pigs had to argue to convince them it didn't exist. The pigs' most loyal followers were two cart horses, Boxer and Clover. They found it hard to think for themselves. But once they accepted the pigs as their teachers, they learned everything and shared it with the other animals in simple ways. They always attended the secret meetings in the barn and led the singing of Beasts of England, which ended every meeting. As it turned out, the rebellion happened much sooner and easier than anyone expected. In the past, Mr. Jones had been a tough but capable farmer. But lately, he had fallen on hard times. He became very sad after losing money in a lawsuit and started drinking too much. For days, he would sit in his chair in the kitchen, reading newspapers, drinking, and sometimes feeding Moses bread soaked in beer. His workers were lazy and dishonest, and the fields were full of weeds. The buildings needed repairs, the hedges were ignored, and the animals were underfed. June came, and the hay was almost ready to cut. On Midsummer's Eve, a Saturday, Mr. Jones went to Willingdon and got so drunk at the Red Lion that he didn't come back until midday on Sunday. The men milked the cows early in the morning and then went rabbit hunting without feeding the animals. When Mr. Jones returned, he immediately fell asleep on the sofa with the newspaper over his face. So the animals were still unfed by evening. Finally, they couldn't take it anymore. One of the cows broke down the door of the store shed with her horn, and all the animals began to help themselves to food. Just then, Mr. Jones woke up. The next moment, he and his 4 men were in the store shed with whips, hitting in all directions. This was too much for the hungry animals. Together, even though they hadn't planned it, they attacked their tormentors. Jones and his men found themselves being butted and kicked from all sides. They had never seen animals act like this before, and the sudden uprising of the creatures they usually abused scared them. After a moment, they got up and ran away. A minute later, all 5 of them were running down the cart track to the main road, with the animals chasing them in victory. Mrs. Jones looked out the bedroom window, saw what was happening, and quickly packed a few things into a bag. left the farm by another way. Moses flew after her, squawking loudly. Meanwhile, the animals chased Jones and his men onto the road and slammed the gate behind them. Almost before they knew it, the rebellion was a success. Jones was gone and Manor Farm was theirs. For the first few minutes, the animals could hardly believe their luck. The first act was to run around the farm and make sure that no humans were hiding. They then rushed back to the buildings to get rid of the last sign of old Jones's rule. They broke open the harness room at the end of the stables and threw the bits, nose rings, dog chains, and cruel knives used by Mr. Jones to castrate pigs and lambs down the well. They threw the reins, the halters, the blinkers, and the degrading nose bags into the rubbish fire burning in the backyard. They were overjoyed to see the whips burning. Snowball also threw the ribbons used to decorate the horses' manes and tails on market day into the fire. Ribbons, he said, should be seen as clothes, which are signs of humans. All animals should go naked. When Boxer heard this, he took off his straw hat, which he wore in summer to keep the flies away, and he threw it on the fire too. Soon, the animals had destroyed everything that remained of Mr. Jones. Napoleon then led them back to the store shed and gave everyone a double ration of corn, with 2 biscuits for each dog. Then they sang Beasts of England 7 times in a row and settled down for the night, sleeping better than they ever had before. But they woke up at dawn as usual, and suddenly remembering the wonderful thing that had happened, they all ran out into the pasture together. A little way down the pasture was a hill that overlooked most of the farm. The animals rushed to the top and looked around in the clear morning light. Yes, it was all theirs. Everything they could see was theirs. In their excitement, they jumped around, leaping into the air, and rolled in the dew, ate mouthfuls of sweet summer grass, and kicked up clods of earth. Then they inspected the whole farm, admiring the ploughland, hayfield, orchard, pool, and spinney. It was as if they had never seen these things before, and even now they couldn't believe it was theirs. Then they returned to the farm buildings and stopped in silence outside the farmhouse. That was theirs too, but they were scared to go inside. After a moment, Snowball and Napoleon pushed the door open with their shoulders, and the animals entered one by one, walking carefully so as not to disturb anything. They tiptoed from room to room, afraid to speak above a whisper, gazing in awe at the luxury, the beds with feather mattresses, mirrors, horsehair sofa, and the picture of Queen Victoria over the mantelpiece. They were just coming down the stairs when they noticed Molly was missing. They went back and found that she had stayed in the best bedroom. She had taken the blue ribbon from Mrs. Jones' dressing table and was holding it against her shoulder, admiring herself in the mirror. The others scolded her and went outside. They took some hams hanging in the kitchen for burial, and Boxer kicked in a barrel of beer in the scullery. But otherwise, they didn't touch anything in the house. They all agreed that the farmhouse should be kept as a museum, and no animal should ever live there. The animals had their breakfast, and then Snowball and Napoleon called them together again. "Comrades," said Snowball, "it's 6:30, and we have a long day ahead of us today. Today we start the hay harvest, but first there is something else we need to do." The pigs revealed that during the past 3 months they had taught themselves to read and write from an old spelling book that belonged to Mr. Jones's children and had been thrown away. Napoleon sent for pots of black and white paint and led the way to the 5-barred gate that opened onto the main road. Then Snowball, who was the best at writing, took a brush with his trotter and painted over Manor Farm on the top bar of the gate, and painted Animal Farm in its place. This would be the name of the farm from now on. After that, they went back to the farm buildings, where Snowball and Napoleon got a ladder and set it against the big barn's end wall. They explained that through their studies, the pigs had created the 7 commandments of animalism. These commandments would be written on the wall and would be law for all animals on Animal Farm forever. With some difficulty, Snowball climbed up the ladder and started working, while Squealer held the paint pot a few rungs below him. The commandments were written on the tarred wall in big white letters that could be read from 30 yards away. They were the 7 commandments. 1. Whatever walks on 2 legs is an enemy. 2. Whatever walks on 4 legs or has wings is a friend. 3. No animal shall wear clothes. 4. No animal shall sleep in a bed. 5. No animal shall drink alcohol. 6. No animal shall kill any other animal. And 7. All animals are equal. It was written neatly, except for friend, where the I and the E were back the front, and S being the wrong way around. Snowball read it aloud for the others. All of the animals nodded in agreement, and the smarter ones memorized the commandments. "Now, comrades," shouted Snowball, throwing down the paintbrush, "to the hayfield. Let's make it our goal to harvest faster than Jones and his men could." But at that moment, the 3 cows, who had seemed uneasy for a while, began to moo loudly. They hadn't been milked for 24 hours, and their udders were almost bursting. After thinking for a bit, the pigs got buckets and milked the cows successfully, as their trotters were good for this task. Soon there were 5 buckets of frothy milk, which many animals looked at with interest. "What will happen with all that milk?" someone asked. "Jones sometimes mixed some of it in our mash," said one of the hens. "Never mind the milk, comrades," said Napoleon, standing in front of the buckets. "That will be taken care of. The harvest is more important. Comrade Snowball will lead the way. I will follow in a few minutes. Forward, comrades! The hay is waiting." So the animals went down to the hayfield and started the harvest. And when they returned in the evening, they noticed that the milk had disappeared. Okay, everyone. Thanks for watching Chapter 2. Keep an eye out for Chapter 3. If it's already out, you'll find the link here. Click on the link for Chapter 3. If not, please like and subscribe this video so that you don't miss the rest of this book.